Jiro here from Umbra Games with a review of the online, free-to-play, action RPG Path of Exile. The game in its current state, as I'm playing it, is called Path of Exile Ascendancy, and it's version 2.2.2. This version contains the game's original 3 acts, as well as the additional 4th act released in version 2.0. My disclaimer here is that I am thoroughly a Path of Exile noob. I started playing this by request by @RickWillisKC on Twitter, who recommended I give the story mode a go. I also want to give a shout out to LiftingNerd Gaming on YouTube for some excellent tutorial videos that helped me get started, and I'd highly recommend a quick watch if you decide to give this game a go. Path of Exile is an isometric dungeon-crawling action role-playing game, where you pick a class in the form of an exile, including melee and range characters, the Duelist, Marauder, Ranger, Shadow, Templar, and Witch. After creating your character, you're then dropped off the prison ship onto the continent of Rayclast, where you must slaughter enemies en masse in order to survive in this dark fantasy world. As mentioned, the game is split into 4 acts, each with a hub town and several interconnected procedurally generated areas. Each act features its own story arc that culminates into a boss battle, each unique and with their own mechanics. The hub towns are all online social areas akin to what you see in games like Destiny and The Division, and the moment you step outside, you're in an instant version by yourself or your party members, so you don't have a ton of player killing the same enemies that you're going for. While it is available, I pretty much immediately shut off global chat just to ward off the standard MMO nonsense that comes through. The game also features a trade channel though, and of course the ability to whisper or instant message another player. While there is no auction house integrated into the game, there are websites that people treat as virtual marketplaces where you can meet up with them in game and participate in player trading. I've even heard talks of currency exchanges as a way of making wealth. So Path of Exile plays very similarly to how I remember Diablo 2 working, as Diablo 3 I played on console. You point and click to where you want to move your character, you point and click on the enemy you want to attack, rinse and repeat. Path of Exile's interface is set up so you can map an ability to both left and right mouse button, as well as a center one. You can also map ability to the keyboard on the QWERT on the fly as you wish. Now, where the Diablo series traditionally made the class determine your skills and abilities, Path of Exile opens it up, makes the abilities you use come from gem slots in your weapons and armor. You can obtain skill gems from completing quests, finding them as drops off enemies, or purchase them from vendors. As you kill enemies, you gain experience and level up, receiving passive points to put into one of the biggest skill trees I've seen since Final Fantasy X's Grid Sphere. Now keep in mind, they are passive things based mainly on boosting a stat, boosting particular types of damages, resistances, etc. I chose the Witch Exile because I love my casters. I focus mainly on fire-based abilities and matching fire damage boosts from the tree. Most of the Witch's abilities are blue gems, which share the color of intelligence-related things. Green is dexterity, red is strength. Each piece of gear has a set of gem slots of those 3 colors, where you can put in the abilities of matching color. This gives you an extremely easy way to test out new abilities with no penalty and at very little cost. Gem slots can also be linked, and you can install support gems. Again, for the caster, I had options like increased lightning damage or fast cast that would contribute to the link skill slot. These gems also level up and gain experience as you kill enemies, making them even more powerful. One thing that is key in a game like this is something constantly giving you forward momentum. Path of Exile does a great job of this in how quickly your character levels up. I probably played close to 16 hours to make it through the normal story mode, and was around level 40 when I finished the end boss. This means an average of 2.5 levels per hour, letting you feel the power increase as you populate that passive tree. I did find the game got just a little bit too easy once I got the Firestorm spell, as you'll most likely see in the video footage most of the time, and I was able to just steamroll about anything with that spell, almost to the point of being game-breaking. The thing that could have balanced this a little better is more apparent elemental strengths and weaknesses in enemies. I mean, I went through a fire level and just rained down fire on all the enemies, and none were particularly guarded against it, no more than the ripe, fleshy zombies in the fields of dry, brittle grass that I'd traveled through to get there. Now, I don't doubt it probably went through testing though, and if someone's building a Fire Witch in particular, you would most likely hit a stiff difficulty wall if all of a sudden your honed abilities didn't do anything, so I understand. Now, instead of purchasing potions or using healing spells, Path of Exile has flasks that you equip in slots 1 to 5 on the number keys. The flask comes in various sizes with extra bonuses, and you use these to refill your life and mana. They fill back up based on charges received for killing enemies. This keeps the game pretty fast-paced, and you don't have to worry about a stock of consumables. I do appreciate that the brightness of your aura that you can see around you in dark areas gets smaller and smaller as your life depletes. Very nice, subtle visual cue so that you're not having to keep as close of an eye on your life cloak. There doesn't really seem to be a penalty for death, there's no weapon deterioration or repair necessary, and in fact if you die during a boss fight when you make it back again, you can just pick up where you left off. Now, if you think that's too easy, you're welcome to go ahead and try the game's hardcore mode, where once you die, you're out. So another thing that really sets Path of Exile apart is the currency system. Every other game I can remember like this, enemies drop gold, and that's generally how you buy new gear, repair existing gear, and purchase consumables. In online games, this is also how you get inflation, and problems like gold farmers in your economy. Path of Exile exchanges that for currency items that all serve a dual purpose. For example, the smallest unit of currency is a Scroll of Wisdom. As you sell loot you pick up on your journey, you're given fragments of Scrolls of Wisdom that stack up to make a full scroll. The vendors in town will accept this as payment for items, but in true Diablo fashion, half the gear you find will have to be what they call identified before you can use it. Identifying an item reveals hidden bonuses and upgrades at the cost of 1 Scroll of Wisdom, so you'll be consuming them a lot, making them vanish from the currency pool. Other higher forms of currency change the number of gem slots when consumed, or change the color of the slots, or have a chance to increase item rarity, white, blue, yellow, and orange in this game. While it takes a bit of time to wrap your mind around, this was a pretty ingenious method of keeping things in balance and keeping things interesting. Another nifty feature with a lot of depth is what the community refers to as vendor recipes. You can sell combinations of loot to a vendor to get special things in return. On the loot note though, you have extremely limited inventory space, once again like Diablo, in its grid appearance, and some chests and bonus enemies alone will drop more loot than you can pick up at once, making it difficult for those who like to go through with a fine-tooth comb and just snag everything in a level. The other effect this had on me was being probably a little bit too passive in checking for upgrades, because so much of what you pick up is worthless loot, even though it'd be of yellow rarity. Didn't seem worth the time either to spend my currency items to attempt random upgrades on something I had a potential to replace at any given moment, but too much loot is better than not enough. Let's look at some of the other similarities we have to Diablo. We have enemy colors. Most enemy names will appear in a white font near their life bar, but there are also rares in yellow and orange, and packs in blue. Enemy modifiers, like that enemy having extra life, or regeneration, or dealing extra fire damage, or resistances, show under their names when they're targeted. Path of Exile does an amazing job with their enemy design and variety, especially with the aforementioned bosses. Now, we're not quite talking World of Warcraft level mechanics, but you definitely have to watch for patterns and hit targets appropriately. To match their wonderful enemy designs, there are also quite a few well-developed tile sets that Grinding Gears has used for their procedural map generation. You start the game on a dark beach and move through forests and mountains, ending up in towering cathedrals and prisons and towers and defiled temples, as well as nightmare rooms. After you've cleared a map, in about 8 to 15 minutes from leaving it, it will completely regenerate so you can go through again if you're interested in a grind or finding particular rares. You can also force a new instance or join other existing ones by holding control when you click the entrance to the area. Each act has its own set of maps, and while they require unlocking them progressively, you can return to anywhere you've been at any given time, and to aid the cross-country march, you can use waypoints found in most areas, and also the portal scrolls that take you back to the hub town. Coming to Path of Exile a couple years after it's already been released brings with it some bonuses. There are leagues that take place every few months, and Grinding Gears uses this time to put in new mechanics in the game. For example, you may have come across a strong box lying on the ground that will spawn enemies when you touch it, and when they're all defeated they'll reveal their loot. I'm told the Shady Green Phantom that you can chase around the map as he powers up enemies as well as their loot was brought into players via leagues. The current league is the Perandus League, where a chest will manufacture reviving minions as fast as you can put them down until you take down what seems to be a collective HP bar of guards, only then revealing to you the treasure inside. This treasure will include Perandus coins that you can spend on random items sold by a mysterious figure that you must seek out on each map. There are also other events to be found on each map given to you by various NPCs in Rayclast.
There you are.
As you perform tasks for these masters, you gain reputation points, and they will sell you more and better items the further you progress. These activities include finding a corrupted beast lair, slaughtering everything within, protecting a relic for 60 seconds, hunting down a particular rare monster on the map, and a few others as well. Path of Exile does a great job of having a story without constantly shoving it down your throat. You're welcome to participate in the story and talk to NPCs about specific topics. You can find engravings and notebooks with audio logs spread across the acts. But honestly, if you wanted to go through the game without hearing any of it, you have that option as you can press continue on dialogue boxes, and your objectives are almost always marked so you can quickly find the next way to go. So I need to take a brief second and explain the difference between the quality of something and how much an individual enjoys it. Gamers especially tend to have an attitude that something sucks just because it's something that they don't like. I tend to think of myself as an objective gamer that can view flaws in game systems but still find something to appreciate about the game to keep going. I will probably do a full video on this someday, and I'll dive into the explanations of my rating and genre system. I say all that to say, I honestly don't have fun using a click-everything interface that is common in most action RPGs like this. I love leveling up, I love finding new gear, I love exploring new worlds, I love completing quests, I love seeing lore unfold and hordes of enemies come at me. But I don't have a good time playing pure clicking games like this. Now, Path of Exile is probably the most solid I've seen, as it instantly had answers for every frustrating thing I'd faced before in one of these games. I love to use range characters. In other games, when an enemy dies and you're holding click or still clicking again, your character will walk into the fray. Path of Exile has a walk-only ability that you can map to a button so that doesn't happen. This also solves the opposite problem of trying to get out of an ambush when you're completely surrounded, as if you click to move instead of attacking an enemy you might have clicked as you're moving the mouse quickly, the move will make you only walk there instead of firing. But honestly, it just feels like I'm swatting flies in the old Mario Paint game on Super NES. Yeah, that one. Make this game available using a controller and twin sticks, and I'll play through it 8 times, like Diablo 3 on PS4. But if you're like me and think that style of gameplay isn't quite as fun as others, the game doesn't suck and isn't boring. It's solid, it's just not our preference. As mentioned, Path of Exile is free to play and can be downloaded at pathofexile.com. One of my friends asked if it was a, quote, pay to win, but the microtransaction for real money comes from buying vanity items, appearance changes, and pets, and are not at all remotely necessary to enjoy or finish the game. Path of Exile, while typically labeled straight up as an action RPG, falls a little more specifically into my subgenre of isometric dungeon crawler, and rated as such lands an 83 out of 100. This is Jiro for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching. I am on Twitter at Umbra Games, and if you like this video and would like to be notified of other reviews as they come out, if you don't have Twitter to follow, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Also like to give a shout out to YouTuber Chibi Biscuit for that awesome 8-bit Twitter logo.